In 1985, TV and movie adaptations of Stephen King's work were hot. So hot that anything that he had put out previously was getting looked at for the smaller big screen. So today we're looking at a Stephen King story that was adapted by the great Harlan Ellison for the Twilight Zone, the new Twilight Zone. It's called Gramma or Grandma. Gramma is the first segment of the 18th episode of the first season of the new Twilight Zone. This one, about a boy who's afraid of his grandmother, is based on a short story of the same name by Stephen King, which was published in the collection Skeleton Crew. Ironically, this interpretation came out Valentine's Day in 1986. In this one, 11-year-old George is left alone with his infirm grandmother, while his mother leaves to visit George's brother in the hospital. George's mother is concerned since George is frightened of Gramma, but George insists he has grown out of his fear. Grandma asks George for tea. As George brings tea, he recalls how his mother and her siblings discuss how dangerous she is now, that she is senile. Her hand reaches out from the bedclothes. This startles George, and he drops the tea tray and flees the room. Now, regaining his composure, George returns to clean up the mess. He opens a panel in the floor. He takes 2 books from the concealed hole and runs out with them. One of the books is the Necronomicon, while the other is a diary which discusses witchcraft and summoning the dead. He realizes Grandma is a witch. George returns to Grandma's room and tries without success to rouse her. He finds she has no pulse. Thinking she is dead, he runs to the phone and to call the hospital, but the line is tied up. He returns to her room to cover up her face. Grandma reaches out and grabs it, and he seemed to merge into one being. George's mother then returns home and finds George sitting at the kitchen table with his grandmother's books. He explains that Grandma died and he was scared. She comforts him, saying that Grandma will always be with them. George now has glowing red eyes like Grandma. Now, Barrett Oliver plays Georgie, with Darlene Flugel as the mother, and of course Piper Laurie plays the voice of Grandma. Very, very interesting casting choice. Now, directed by Bradford May, and this was the opening again parcel of that Valentine's Day episode. Now, the Twilight Zone staff writers were unhappy when they were told that CBS had acquired the TV rights for Stephen King's Gramma, feeling it would almost be impossible to adapt since it consists mostly of internal monologues. Faced with the choice of producing a segment from it or swallowing the considerable cost of licensing a Stephen King property, they turned the unenviable task of writing the teleplay over to story consultant Harlan Ellison. Now, William Friedkin, who had previously directed the segment Nightcrawlers, of course, of Exorcist fame, was originally slated to direct, and in fact had cast all the characters and fully prepped the set when a familial obligation forced them to drop the job. Bradford May, the Twilight Zone director of photography, had long held aspirations of being a director and stepped in as Friedkin's last-minute replacement. The segment was shot on sets at the CBS at Radford. Now, when George opened up the floor panel into Grandma's bedroom, the sounds which emerged are a collage of baking frying, cicadas singing, and Harlan Ellison making raspy vocalizations. Ellison also provided one of the voices of George's family, while Piper Laurie voiced Grandma. Now, Gilbert Cruz, who claims he's an expert on Stephen King, ranked Gramma at number 9 out of 27 in a list of Stephen King TV adaptations on the publication Vulture. Cruz remarked that Harlan Ellison's script does an astoundingly good job of making the uneventful story work for television and bringing out its emotional and metaphorical heart. Now, this was basically kind of a look at your personal bogeyman. And there's always tales, my grandmother's a witch. There's witches in my family. That was kind of rising in the 80s because witch culture, or what they call black magic culture, not white magic, of course. We needed white magic to beat the Russians in 72. Black magic was starting to rise again in the 80s because, Cold War, paranoia and stuff like that. So you got to understand, ladies and gentlemen, Stephen King's he never would write much science fiction, not too many non-horror fantasy, but it was very, very interesting how this played out because Harlan Ellison, adapting Stephen King, that's like, Guido Fleur getting injured and Marilyn Lemieux, going on the ice and playing for the Montreal Canadiens. You can't get any better than that when you even have Piper Laurie involved is a tremendous stuff. Now, what I want you to consider, ladies and gentlemen, with like Harlan Ellison, there was a lot of good people involved in the new Twilight Zone. Now, the idea of the '85 version, it seemed to be more team effort because we had the people from the Grateful Dead doing the theme music. You had a whole bunch of writers, different people involved, and the only thing is, ladies and gentlemen, by the time the Canadian version came around, all the quality was not there. Now, there's still talk if there's going to be a perfect transfer of the series, saying that the DVD versions that were put out were kind of low end. But the problem is the shows were shot on film but edited on video. Now, first season again had a lot of great episodes, Paladin Lost Hour, stuff like this. But the acting in there. Now, the writers and filmmakers involved in the series included Harlan Ellison, George Martin, of Game of Thrones fame, Rockne S. O'Bannon, Jeremy Bertrand Finch, Paul Chitlick, and directors Wes Craven and William Friedkin. Big actors on the show included Bruce Willis, Helen Mirren, Dead Woman Shoes, Shelley Duvall, Susan Hubley, Morgan Freeman, Martin Landau, Piper Laurie, Janet Leigh, Tom Skerritt, Ralph Bellamy, Louis Fletcher, Martin Balsam, William Atherton, Richard Mulligan, the remake of Night of the Meek, Danny Kaye, Paladin Lost Hour, Norma Lloyd, Jonathan Frakes, Francis McDermott, John Carradine, Victor Garber, Maury Chaykin, Donald Moffat, Melinda Dillon, of course, the interesting pilot episode, Tess Harper, George Wendt, Charles Martin Smith, Adrian Barbeau, and Fred Savage. See, with any anthology show, you got to have a really good producers, directors, and actors. Now, the only thing, ladies and gentlemen, I wouldn't say that the inconsistency of certain episodes was drawing people not to watch. I don't think people were ready for a 1 hour version of the Twilight Zone if you would have kept the shows even 30 minutes or like 23 minutes with commercials. I think it would be much better. Now, the idea is they were on a budget, and majority of the episodes were not written by Rod Serling. There was, I think, Many Monkeys was one script that was rejigged from the old series. But I give season 1 of the show 3.5 stars out of 4. Unfortunately, by second season down to 3, and third season the Canadian episodes were hit and miss for sure. It was almost like the Canada's version of the Twilight Zone, more like Alfred Hitchcock Presents. So that's a story when Stephen King arrived in the Twilight Zone. If you like what you're doing here with our Stephen King podcasts, other different genres, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share. Bye.